This is episode 93 of Standing Out. Standing Out is a remarkable interview style podcast with the intention to highlight women and men making outstanding contributions in their field. This podcast is generously sponsored by Meet Jointly. Across the country, there are small businesses just starting to scale, get distribution, and launch in national retailers. They all share one really big challenge: reaching new customers and growing their brand on a shoestring budget. Meet Jointly is a platform that connects growing brands with the influencers who are ready to share their product and stories with their engaged audience. Today, I'd like to welcome Paul Hebner. Paul is a CEO of Finance Pals that provides finance help for startups and small businesses. Paul loves numbers, business, and helping people, so he started Finance Pals. He has helped over 30 CEOs understand their finances and grow into amazing companies, and also offload finance tasks so they can focus on their business. Finance Pals provides bookkeeping, accounting, financial planning and analysis, and fractional CFO services. When Paul is not analyzing numbers or building spreadsheets for fun, he is either outdoors or with his family or both. He's climbed 30 Colorado 14ers and ran many half marathons and 200-mile relays with friends. He and his wife have two kiddos that are 7.5 and 1.5. He's from Kentucky originally and has lived in Denver since 2003. Welcome, Paul. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Katrina.
With all of that awesomeness in your bio, the thing that stands out to me, because this is so opposite from me, is this line: Paul loves numbers. Have you always had sort of like a number finance sort of background?
I've always loved it, even since I was a kid, in math class and just, I even did it wasn't math camp, but it was sort of like, some people have debate club after school or things like that. There was like math camp after school where we did math competitions. I did that, in high school. So it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like a cool program. So when you started Finance Pals, did you have this exact vision of working with small businesses and startups? Like, what was this the vision from the beginning?
No, it's one of those, interesting stories. So I started it trying to help out, brand new startups write their business plans. Okay. And apparently I found out quickly that there's a lot of great free resources and ways to do that. And that also those companies don't have any money to pay you.
Right.
Into sort of working with a little more stable startups, working with, once I had a little more traction and got my first client out at Denver Startup Week, which is a local thing here. It's huge, like 10,000 people for a week. And I just met a client there and they said, "Hey, you do finance?" I said, "Sure, yeah, I do finance," and just started doing some free work for them for like a couple of weeks. And the next thing you know, they were a client. And then it sort of just has evolved from there. And it's still evolving. I'm focusing more and more on sort of the small business and bookkeeping now, which apparently there's even more customers that need that help. So that's where I'm focusing my current growth, I guess.
So I've been active in Denver Startup Week also, and then in your bio, which I didn't share, it looks like you're also active in 10-10-10, which we have in common. What do you find, and I don't know, I'll tell you what I feel and you tell me if you disagree, but I feel like Denver and Colorado in general has an amazing community of entrepreneurs and startup, either accelerators or I don't know what you would call them, but like support organizations. And one, I think it's so fun and awesome to get involved in that capacity, but we too get clients from that. Are you typically finding the same thing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think it's a lot of fun to, it's funny because when I started Finance Pals 3 years ago, I went to Denver Startup Week and learned all about marketing and learned all about legal and I was like, this is amazing. And I still even things that I learned 3 years ago, I'm still, using today. So, I mean, it's amazing, all the free resources.
Yeah.
And, I think the other cities have, similar things, but I think that Denver just has this sort of overwhelming, sort of new growth and people that are excited, and it's a unique spot to be.
It really is. So do you find with the companies you work with, they tend to be people that have another skill, whether it is in marketing or product development, and they're kind of like me, and hey, I don't want to deal with the finance thing, but I know I have to. Is that how most of them are?
It's across the board. I mean, there's some companies, the CEOs that love the numbers, but just get busy and they want to do something else. And there are some people that literally, from, very beginning, starting the company out, they're like, I hate numbers. Like, it wasn't my thing.
Right.
Can you help me with, create my initial business plan and pro forma and things like that. So it's across the board, what people need help with and where they need it.
What would you say is the best thing and the worst thing about being an entrepreneur?
I think the best thing, and sort of we already talked about it with Denver Startup Week and things like that, but it's being able to learn new things, being able to try new things. I love that. I love the variety. My background before Finance Pals was management consulting. I loved working with different clients, and I just always loved doing different things. So that's probably the best thing. And the flexibility is amazing. That's what sort of some people get drawn into, but you find out that you have unlimited work when you start your things. Your flexibility is a little limited, but I can, take vacation or do things whenever I want.
Sure.
On the other side, I think it's just you get so accustomed to a certain life in the corporate world. I was having this conversation with somebody yesterday that just quit their full-time job, and they're a very senior person. And we were just talking about how it's scary, to not have that dependable paycheck. You don't have paid vacations anymore. All of his friends were asking him, like, what are you going to do for healthcare? What are you going to do, for all these other things? And so I think every once in a while I do get a little nostalgic of, whenever I wrote a blog post a while ago. I was like, whenever I send an email to somebody and I get an out of office reply, I'm like, that's only happens in the corporate world. If I'm on vacation, I'm still running my business. I might be on vacation, but the idea of having a paid vacation sounds amazing.
I have a similar experience in that when I started this company 7 years ago, and maybe a few, like 4 years ago, a family member started, I don't want to say poking the holes, but I think they were putting their fears about instability that they might have in leaving their more stable job to do something like what I do. They're like, well, what about healthcare? What about vacations? What about this, that, and it was adding up. It's like, yes, but there is also a piece of me that strongly believes I have more stability in some ways. Like, we have more clients than just one. So the chance of all of them leaving on the same day and me not having any income is far less than me potentially getting cut. I mean, we have corporate clients that are facing a lot of cuts, like 5 and 10% of their core workforce is getting laid off. So I wonder if there's, and I don't know the numbers, but I wonder if there is some sort of, rebuttal to that in terms of, no, actually this model is more sustainable in that regard.
Yeah, I think those first few years are the toughest, and after you get over the hurdle, then it gets a little easier. And I think that, at that stage when you have multiple clients and things like that, then you can make that argument. I don't know how to convince your spouse or parents or other people earlier, but I think you just have to say it's something you want to try.
Yeah. Well, that, and I mean, in my experience, I just kept going. And then eventually, family's like, well, I don't know what you do, but good job. Like something, so anyway.
Yeah. There's a lot of opportunities to try it on the side as well. I mean, Finance Pals really started as a sort of side business. I had one client that I just did on the side, and I was like, okay, this is great. I'll make some extra money. And then after a while, I was like, oh, I should be doing this, spending more of my time doing this.
Right.
So that's another alternative, is to say, hey, I'm just going to do this on the nights or weekends and sort of alleviate some of that risk.
What's one of the things you've learned through this entrepreneurial journey that you wish you would have known earlier on?
I think something that I'm still learning and struggling with is coming up with what you really want your company to be. And sort of working towards that. I think initially I just tried it out and I was like, oh, let's see if this works. And then I've sort of moved into a spot now where I'm focused much more on growth. And my job is to grow the company and get more customers as opposed to doing the work. And I think even as recent as a year ago, I was focused on doing the work and delivering really good work, which is still really important. Right. But it was taking me away from my ultimate goal of sort of being CEO and trying to grow the company.
Right. What do you think from what I understand, a lot of businesses run their business by checking the bank balance and seeing what's in there and then making the decisions from there. What would you say is the biggest problem with that approach?
Yeah, so I think it's a good approach at first, and it's an approach you learn from managing your personal finances. When you have your own family's bank account, it's really easy to say, I'm getting paid every 2 weeks, and these are my credit card bills, this is my mortgage, and you can sort of set a baseline and run it that way. When you have a business, it's a lot harder to do that.
Sure.
Because you have a lot of variability and revenue coming in, customers might pay late, but you're really not focusing on growth. And if you have a company that you want to grow into something bigger, you need to be investing that money in hiring new employees, spending more on marketing, and really understanding how you can grow the business versus sort of being cautious and sort of having a bank balance and just saying, yeah, this is great. And it's also hard because I think people like to see that bank balance going up.
Well,
it makes you feel you're like, oh, I'm being successful. My balance is higher this month than last month.
Feels like progress.
But really, if you could take that extra money and invest it in 3 to 6 months down the road and have double that amount of money in the bank, it'll be much better.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. Do you find a lot of companies, particularly startups, are seeking to get funding these days, like maybe more than usual?
It's across the board, but yeah, I think there is a very Hollywood-esque theme to this, where people just think, hey, I'll come up with this idea and I'll get $1 million and
20 million.
Then I'll see if it works. And
Yeah.
I do some angel investing and stuff on the side as well. And
Okay.
it's amazing how competitive it is to get that money, and how good the companies are. I mean, there's companies that have 5 million in revenue and they're still not getting funding because they are worried about different things. Or there's companies that are doubling every year their revenue and they're still not getting funding. So it's super competitive.
Yeah. Is there and I'm trying to think how to word the question, and I might not have the right word, so you might have to help me, but is there a better way to seek funding, whether that be angel investing, crowdfunding, equity agreement, something? You tell me the terms, but what's your recommendation?
So my recommendation is, and it's very backwards. I think people try to get funding so that they can figure out if their business works. And people need to figure out that their business works and how they want to grow it, and then go get funding. And it's, a lot of entrepreneurs are very frustrated with that because they need the money to hire the salesperson, or they need the money to develop the app. And
Right.
they need to find that money through friends and family, or find another company that'll do the development work for some ownership or different things. And they need to get over that initial traction to do it, unless they're a repeat entrepreneur that's had an exit or things like that. So I think that's the problem, is these entrepreneurs who have been successful have a much easier time of getting funding. And so these other new entrepreneurs are like, oh, well, somebody else just got funding, at this stage, I'm going to get funding too, but they don't realize that they didn't have the experience.
And the thing with the entrepreneur that had an exit, that's proving themselves for this next journey, right? And in an investor's mind.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. So I guess back to your original question, the thing that I would focus on the most is proving the business and getting customers. I think if you get some revenue and get customers, that'll give you the option to decide, do you want to keep bootstrapping it and keep growing the company that way? Which is, I work with a lot of bootstrap companies as well. Yeah. And that's great. They own 100% or sometimes, 95% of the company if they have a small board. And that's awesome. Versus, then doing the angel investing route, which is a completely different route to be on.
Yeah. As we wrap up, what's one thing that's on your radar as a thought leader that you think we'll all be talking about in another year or two from now, sort of as like a hot topic?
Yeah, I think, and it's what Finance Pals is really playing into, but it's the idea of remote and part-time workers.
Oh.
You have companies like Upwork and all these other things, and it's amazing how sort of commoditized some of this, I wouldn't call it entry-level work, but some of this work has become, and how people just, especially in the startup world, but they just need some part-time help here and there, and it's so easy now. Yeah. And I think that's going to be more and more of the trend where people realize that, and then they realize they don't have to have a 9-to-5 job anymore, and they can work from home, they can do different things. And I think that's going to be an ongoing trend of more freelancers and more companies that are embracing that. I think that there's still this stigma of, or not stigma, but there's still this idea of having a corporate culture and having employees and somebody you train up and promote a bunch of times. And that still exists, but I think there's going to be more and more of this shift towards, people wanting to do their own thing and have more flexibility.
There's really interesting numbers on that too. I've heard it called the freelance economy, because there is such momentum behind that. We're seeing more people leave corporations or never enter corporations and just kind of start their own thing and piece things together. Like you started with a side hustle, right? Like great way to make some extra money and grow it from there. I think you're spot on with that.
And I think there'll be a lot more sort of differentiation as well. So I think that as it becomes more commoditized, there'll be people who want, to work with people that can provide that extra level of communication or do more than just that task as well. Like I said, we're focusing more on bookkeeping and things, and there's so many people that can do that. And there's companies that, are huge that do that. But I think that as people who have their side hustle or their side company, if they can do the other stuff like the financial planning and analysis or the fractional CFO work or other things beyond just the general tasks, and I think those are the people that will be, I think everybody will be successful, but I think they'll be more successful. And they're the ones that will have longer term relationships with their clients. Because I think a lot of people get frustrated when, now that they're trying things like Upwork and things, they get this idea that like, hey, this is great. I'm going to do this, get this person for, $20 an hour and it's going to be awesome. Yeah. And then the work's not that great. So I think it'll be both. It'll be both sides. We'll have to sort of figure that out.
I think there will be more of that because even though you're using someone on Upwork or another platform, I think the business owner is still wanting insight and strategy and vision and reason for each decision. And we find that in what we do with clients too. Oftentimes, clients are like, well, what's your expert opinion on this? Like, what have you seen? What's good? What's not good? And I do think a lot of that is a differentiator that makes us not a commodity. You can't get that experience everywhere.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, thank you, Paul. I appreciate you being here.
Yep. Thanks, Katrina. Thanks for having me. Have a great day.